Hello everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel Crime Chronicles. If you're a fan of true crime, you're probably always on the lookout for the next great story. Here are 6 true crime stories that are sure to keep you up at night, and each one will shock and horrify you. Therefore get ready to be totally creeped out by these crazy true crime stories. Before we start, let me just remind you that the following content is not suitable for the faint of heart. So, before moving on, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and smash on the bell icon. Number 6. The Moors Murders. The Moors Murders were a series of horrifying killings that took place in the United Kingdom during the period of 1963 to 1965. The case involves a young couple, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, who were responsible for the deaths of 5 children in and around the area of Great Manchester. After murders had taken place, the bodies of the children were buried on Saddleworth Moor. At least 4 of the children who were murdered had been sexually abused and tortured before they died. The children were Pauline Reed, who was 16 years old, John Kilbride, who was 12 years old, Keith Bennett, who was 12 years old, Leslie Ann Downey, who was 10 years old, and Edward Evans, who was 17 years old. Both Brady and Hindley were sentenced to life imprisonment and died in prison due to old age. Furthermore, Hindley was labelled as the most devil woman in all of Britain. The trial and life imprisonment of the Moors murders became a big story in the media, making it one of the most well-known true crime cases ever. Number 5. The Toolbox Killers. The Toolbox Killers is a true crime story from the United States that is both shocking and horrifying. This case involves 2 men, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, who kidnapped, raped and murdered 5 teenage girls in Southern California between June and November of 1979. The men made use of a toolbox that contained a variety of sadistic tools and weapons for the purpose of torturing and killing their victims. Their actions were documented using a video camera, as well as through the capture of audio and photos of the brutal harassment. Tragically, 4 young women, namely Andrea Hall, aged 18, Jacqueline Gilliam, aged 15, Jacqueline Leah Lamp, aged 13, and Shirley Lynette Ledford, aged 16, were the unfortunate victims of an evil crime that spanned 5 months. It's worth noting that unlike the other victims, the bodies of Schaefer and Hall have not been discovered. Number 4. Jonestown Massacre. The Jonestown Massacre was one of the most devastating cult events in history, and it occurred just a few years after the Toolbox Killers were brought to justice. This was led by the charismatic preacher Jim Jones, and the People's Temple was a religious group based in San Francisco, California, that drew in followers from all over the country. However, Jones's cult moved to a remote jungle in Guyana due to their isolationist tendencies and his increasingly bizarre behavior. The tragedy unfolded on 18th of November 1978, when Jones ordered his followers to drink a cyanide-laced beverage, resulting in the deaths of over 900 people. The victims of the massacre included men, women, as well as children who were convinced to follow Jones to what they thought would be a believer in the improvement of human society. The events leading up to and during the tragedy were marked by manipulation, enforcement, and the abuse of power. The incident was witnessed by a reporter named Tim Reiterman, who was able to survive the ordeal and bear witness to the horrific events that took place. Number 3. Ted Bundy. We'll next cover the notorious killer Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was the infamous killer who murdered dozens of innocent women. He was known for his charming appearance and ability to attract his victims. He often targeted college students, and he escaped custody twice before being caught and put to death. His crimes instilled fear in the hearts of young women everywhere. Bundy was truly a personification of evil. Yet, despite his monstrous actions, many people were drawn to his charm and attractiveness. Ted Bundy's first known attack was not a murder but an assault on Karen Sparks, who was 18 years old student. Bundy entered her apartment and struck her unconscious with a metal rod from her bed frame before sexually assaulting her with the same item. His assault left her in a 10-day coma and with long-lasting disabilities. Bundy created a method of attracting women by asking them to help him put something into his car while dressed in a cast or seeming to be injured in some other way before beating them to death. Bundy confessed to killing 36 young women across several states in the 1970s, but experts believe that the actual number of his victims could be much higher, possibly over 100. Bundy's murder victim count may forever remain a mystery. Number 2. The Torso Murders. The Cleveland Torso Murders, also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, occurred during the time of 1935 and 1980, and involved at least 12 victims, although the actual number might be higher. The victims were typically individuals on the fringes of society, such as homeless men and drifter. The Cleveland police made plaster casts of the victims' heads to try to identify them. Masks were created for 4 of the torso victims: Edward Andrassy, Florence Polilio, and 2 others. The masks were then exhibited to the public and police force with the goal of identifying the victims. Unfortunately, the killer was never caught, with almost no evidence behind, and the case remains unsolved to this day. The brutality of the murders and the mystery surrounding the killer have made the Cleveland Torso Murders one of the most intriguing and disturbing cases in American criminal history. Number 1. The Atlanta Child Murders. The Atlanta Child Murders were a series of killings in the late 1970s and early 1980s that terrorized the city of Atlanta, Georgia. Over the course of 2 years, at least 28 African-American children, teens, and young adults were murdered, with many of their bodies found in local rivers, causing widespread fear and suspension in the Atlanta community. The killer, Wayne Williams, was eventually caught and convicted for 2 of the murders, but many questions remain unanswered about the Atlanta child murders and the possibility of additional victims. The case is controversial, with some people thinking that Williams was framed, while others argue that the full truth has yet to be revealed. So there you have it, some of the most shocking tales of true crime that will leave you sleepless at night. Now it's time to say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed our walk on the dark side, crime lovers. And always remember, not everything that happens in real life is sunshine and butterflies. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned with Crime Chronicles. Until next time.